Okay, video editing, one of filmmaking's many mysteries, right? Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be. This video is going to be a no frills, no fluff, no BS video about editing and some of the things that you guys absolutely need to know and understand to become better video editors. Today's video is sponsored by Riverside, a platform to record studio quality remote podcasts and video from anywhere. More about them later. Let's look at some of the critical things that you guys actually need to understand. Straight off the bat, this video is not gonna cover anything like sound effects, color grading, or any of that. We're going way deeper in this. We're gonna do some like really actually psychological things that you guys can be doing when you're editing, as well as covering one or two technical tips, but they're gonna be much more of a approach on some of the deeper meaning in editing. So let's get into the first tip. The first thing, and arguably one of the most important things when you guys are editing a video, is understanding the style and, for lack of a better word, vibe of the video that you are actually trying to create. There are a lot of different styles, obviously, and if you guys don't know exactly what style you are trying to replicate, it's going to be very tricky for you to navigate that editing process to figure out exactly what you should be doing. Figuring this out before you actually start your edit is going to help you drastically when it comes to actually putting that edit together. Different things like having different style of music, different style of shots and cutting, pacing, everything is going to be determined by the style, overall style of video that you guys are trying to create. If you're going for something dreamy, maybe you want some nice slow music, you can play out your cuts a little bit longer. Maybe you thought of this before you filmed your video and your shots are stable and nice. You can slow a lot of your footage down and have it nice and slow paced. Maybe you're going for a more energetic vibe where you can have faster cuts, you can have more shaky footage, not as much slow motion. The track that you select can be a little more fast paced and like all over the place. There's obviously so many different styles in this, but it is imperative that you guys understand which one that you're going for so there can be a clear path of getting to that, rather than like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, all kind of thrown into one. It's not going to have the same effect, and your edit is going to be the thing that has the downfall because of that. Next thing I want to cover, maintaining the point of focus. Now, what does this mean? If you guys are cutting up different clips next to one another, if you have one clip, and this is one of my favorite tips and I've covered it before, if you guys have one clip that the viewer who's watching that video is going to be looking at a certain part in your frame, let's say the top left, and then you cut to a clip that the next center of focus or the part that you want the viewer to be looking at is in a different part of the frame, whether that's the center or the bottom right. As you change those clips, you're gonna make the viewer a little bit confused. They're gonna have to figure out again where they're supposed to be looking in that frame, what are they supposed to be seeing, what are they supposed to be noticing, what is the subject and point of this next shot. And a way that you guys can do this in a much more smooth and coherent way is to keep that point of focus in your frame in the same place between clips from one to the next to the next. If you are focusing on the center, that's where your viewer is supposed to be looking. You've put all this effort into your composition to have leading lines and all of that to draw the viewer's attention into that. Now you can cut to that next clip and keep that viewer's attention in the exact same place. They already know where to be looking in that frame, and it's going to be a much more smooth, fluid cut between those two shots. You can move the point of focus around in your frame, of course, but not at such a hard point. Maybe you start off with your subject being there, and in that specific shot, without it changing, the point of focus moves around in that frame, and then when you cut to your next shot, you cut to a shot where the point of focus maintains the same general area of that frame. This is huge, guys. It makes such a difference, and it's one of the such subtle tips that you would never really figure out if someone didn't tell you, and it's one of those things that actually end up just making your video so much better and if you didn't know this tip, or someone watching doesn't know this tip, they won't even notice it or understand why those shots are way more fluid with one another. But understanding it and knowing it is going to make that difference. We're going to cover 2 semi-technical tips here, and then we're going to get back into another more strategic psychological tip. The first one is going to be L and J cuts. Now, these are the most used cuts. Windy. There's wind in this studio, unfortunately, quite windy. Now, using J and L cuts are going to be the most cuts that you guys can do in any sort of clip that you might have audio, anything like this where I'm talking but I might be cutting to other things in between. And basically what an L and J cut is to follow that shape of an L and a J. And when you guys cut, you stagger the audio layer to either start before that next clip or end after that first clip. And this makes the transition a little smoother between those 2 cuts, because even before you get to the visuals of the clip that you're going to be cutting to, you can already hear some of the sound that's going to be coming in. Maybe you're riding a motorbike, and as you are going to cut to that clip, you can hear the motorbike sound already starting in that shot. It preempts what the next thing is going to be, creating a very smooth and fluid transition, which you guys can see is so important when video editing. You can also do this with talking, and if you had some sort of shot of a location or any B-roll shot, and then you're gonna have a next shot of something talking head like this, you can start that voice a little bit before you actually cut to that clip, and again, it just preempts it and gives the viewer a little bit less of a hard cut from going visual and audio, boom, next thing. So it just eases it in, and you can do it ease out as well. L and J cuts, amazing. And now that you guys know them, I guarantee you're gonna be using them all of the time. So it's obvious that podcasts are getting big these days, and it's for good reason. One of the biggest problems I have seen though is that if you want to get guests on your podcast, it's very limiting to find logistically plausible people, as creators are scattered all over the world, and bringing them all to the same place is often not a feasible idea. If you guys want to have the best creators and people without limitations on your podcasts, one of the huge benefits of Riverside is it records the audio and video of each participant locally and then uploads the full resolution files onto Riverside once you stop recording. This means you can ensure a recording quality of up to 4K regardless of the internet bandwidth. On top of that, you get separate audio and video tracks for each participant in the podcast, so you can have more control in the post-production process. Riverside is used by over 70,000 users, including companies like Spotify and the New York Times, as well as some of the biggest creators online that you guys actually know, and I'm sure that you are even aware of some of their podcasts. If you're looking for the most professional but still easy to use way to create podcasts, everything is linked in the top of the description. Go and check it out. It is really an amazing platform for anyone that's looking to get into this field. The next semi-technical tip is going to be pockets of pacing. Now, when you guys are editing, regardless of this is a montage or just a B-roll cinematic style video, or if it's something where you are doing like a vlog and you have talking and B-roll and it's all mixed up, understanding that you need different little pockets of pacing and speed to the edit is going to help you to maintain the focus of the viewer and keep them watching. Here's where people go wrong, because I think people understand that, but here's where it's a little bit more tricky to do. Keeping it fast pacing is going to keep the attention of your viewer, but if you have the pacing turned up to like a 10 all of the time, that becomes the baseline, and that is no longer a 10. So one of the most critical things about actually pockets and pacing is that you need to have different pockets of pacing, of course. So you can do slow things and then have something really fast. Maybe it's an intense scene, you can have quicker clips, but then it needs to dip back down and slow down to give the viewer a little bit of room to breathe and realize that that was a peak. Without that valley, there can't be a peak. If it's all just right at the top, it doesn't become a peak anymore, it just becomes a flat piece of land. This next one is going to be make or break when it comes to your guys' edits, especially if you're doing something in a more vlog style or something that involves a little bit more storytelling, because I know this is overly spoken about on YouTube, but storytelling is actually king, and that's what makes people watch and enjoy your videos. Now, here's the thing about storytelling, and something that I see people doing far too often that is ruining their videos, and that is actually telling the story instead of showing it. And you want to switch that over into actually being more of a story shower than a storyteller. Because if you have a video that is, for example, you're going, I'm going to get in my car and go get a cup of coffee to drink, and then you all of a sudden at the coffee shop with your coffee and you're like, I've got my coffee, I'm going to drink it now, and then it cuts to something else. That is not entertaining to watch. That is telling the viewer. You want to show the viewer, story showing. So instead of doing that, alternatively, you could have shots. Maybe you don't even need to say that you're getting a cup of coffee. There's some mystery introduced there. You show shots of you getting in your car, shots of you going somewhere. Where are you going? The viewer might not even know. Then you get to the coffee shop, you order a coffee, then you've got a coffee, you're drinking it. Boom, you've achieved the same thing, but in a so much more immersive way, because you've shown that viewer that thing instead of just telling them and then telling them something else. People get drawn into actually living that moment with you rather than just preempting something that you're going to be doing because you're telling them and then boom, it's done. That isn't very entertaining at all, in my opinion. Have this in mind when you do shoot videos, and when you are editing them, you can cut a lot of the fluff out where you are maybe saying the thing that you're going to be doing the whole time, and rather just use the footage that you have of you actually doing said thing. It's going to make such a huge difference. Okay, that's it for these tips, guys. I hope that you found them useful. I really put a lot of effort into giving you guys tips that aren't just like told the whole time. They're not the technical color grading, add sound effects, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff's useful, but having stuff like this is a much more deeper psychological level of actually editing, and hopefully it can help you to create better videos. Remember to check out Riverside for any podcast needs. It's all going to be linked down below. Other than that, I will see you guys in the next one.